Let's look at the moves. Thank you. What was that?
This is not FPL. This is a major.
Hello, and welcome to HotKeys Esports. It's like Arcane, but with less of Magic Dragons. So just better Arcane.
Really is better Arcane.
I am Prater, and over there is my boy, my co-host, my other side to coin. I ran out of analogies. What's going on, man?
Dobon at the desk was cracking.
W spit. We love the desk.
We love the desk. Yeah. I had a joke. I'm not gonna make the joke. It's one that you told me like a year ago. Someone's
Oh, see, now you're fucking me up. I was joke from a year ago.
We'll talk about it after the episode
because
it's not
it's under the table. Yeah,
it's something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But
yeah, man. What's poppin'?
It's been slow, man. It's been pretty slow in the space of esports, and people will flame me for that because we just had Bangkok qualifiers. Sadly, Gaming did not make it. We had what's that? A CS tournament just ended. The RMRs are going on still, and so we're approaching the majors, so that's gonna be sick.
We're in like the grind season, you know?
Yeah, like
it's like all the leagues are obviously kind of wrapped around this time because it's holiday time. So like no one wants to be fucking leaguing on, Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much just online because like you don't want to land around at that time.
Right.
So yeah, we're definitely in the doldrum period where everyone's kind of on break. You get some of these online qualifiers like the RMRs and stuff are still going, but like beyond that, there's nothing much.
Yeah. So it's been pretty slow. I guess I'll just knock out some news real quick because again, it's been slow, but I found this really funny.
Yeah.
So to jump back on Dota, since we have ESL Bangkok coming on soon, we talked about Heroic in a previous episode and their miracle victory against Falcons and
South America.
How great it was, SA represent. Star carry Parker has since been kicked from Heroic as of like yesterday for toxicity.
Okay.
And
do we have details or did they not?
We do have details, and I have a personal example that I thought was really funny. But essentially the statement that Heroic put out was, hey, we're getting rid of Parker because toxicity. He's like we've been losing and underperforming, like not to our standards. He's also just been
not helping.
He's been like he's pretty much just been inting and like
sure. Okay.
The sad thing is I was watching All Chat Capitalist's podcast about Dota. He brings on pros and things like that.
For sure.
Shout out Cap. He's great. So he had on Quinn, Insania, and Chrysalis of Paravision, and they were talking about the Parker drama, and Quinn was like, dude, Parker, like, if he's just having a bad day, he'll log on, jump in your pubs, and just run it down mid, like, every game, and not say a word, and he'll do that game after game, just because he's pissed off. And then Insania's like, damn, every time I play with Parker, like he pings me, we tip, and we just win games. Like we just crush it. So we got some mixed things, but he does have a track record of being toxic. Even outside of like the pro scene, like every time you'll see like Parker blow up. It's like K1 gets kicked, Parker gets put on a team, Parker performs well on the team, and then he's kicked because of toxicity. And this is like a cycle, and you see it a lot in like South American Dota too, but yeah, so he was intentionally losing games or saying that he wasn't going to play anymore. It was like a whole bunch of stuff that Heroic put out. And then Parker put out a response to it all, saying how there was beef with the coach. There was Brazilian favoritism because there's two Brazil. I think the coach and two of the players on the team are Brazilian. So whenever Analog or KJ would make a call, the coach would side with them rather than Parker. is what he was saying.
Interesting. Okay.
And then the personal example I have is I watched a game where they were playing because I wanted to see how they were doing, see how things really stepped up for them after Dream League and how they were performing in the qualifiers. And this might have been at Dream League, now that I think about it, but he played a Morphling game. And the game didn't go as planned. Heroic didn't win. But as they were losing, they moused over to Parker and checked his inventory, and he just had a full inventory of null talismans. For the League viewers out there, buying null talisman is the kind of, I guess it's more like a Doran's ring. It's like filling your inventory with Doran's rings.
So it's okay. Yeah. So I mean, obviously,
on an ADC at that, like.
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, it's meme shit where he's just like, "Fuck it, this game is over." And
9 slots, all null talismans. Sold all his items and just like ran around his base while they took his ancient. So I'm like, damn, that was toxic. That was crazy. I thought it was funny, but
that's definitely a wild one.
But yeah, outside of that, so Parker looking for a team. Insania in the podcast was saying, he's like, damn, dude, I love playing with Parker. Send him over here. Because they had a whole joke where he's like, Parker's like the coach humbler. Like, he'll like humble all the coaches because every coach has like an ego to him. So Parker will go in and just like take him down a peg, and they hate that. And he's like, hey, man, bring him a liquid.
That's like MOBA classic shit, bro. Because like you hear about that like sort of in like a lot of the League podcasts I listen to, where players like no one throws names around because obviously you don't want to like
you're not trying
people
to
gotta work together and shit, right? Yeah. But like it's very like well known, and like players openly talk about how they're like, yeah, I know players that literally think certain coaches are straight up paycheck stealers. Like,
listen, man, they get a bit of like an inflated ego because they're like the ones drafting, and if a draft does well, they're like, God, my head is fucking huge.
Well, to me it's a thing where, because like it gets thrown around a lot in Hotline League, which is like one of the League podcasts I listen to. Same with The Dive, another one where they always talk about, because there's like a Coach of the Split award, right, that like LCS gives out every year, and on The Dive they constantly talk about how they themselves really don't know what to do with that award, because he's like, the thing about a coach is, to anyone outside the team, you have no idea what the coach is doing. Like, realistically, like, you see them draft, but like, is that all they do? Probably not. Maybe it is. Like, if you're not in the team, you have no clue. You have like half the time. Clue. Because some coaches are, they're not even there for the game, right? They're literally to serve as like a player mediator, essentially. Like, they're a manager, for lack of a better thing, where they're just making sure that these 5 people are playing together appropriately.
Yeah.
And then some coaches are more probably tactically minded, where like they are looking at plays after the game and being like, why are we doing X when Y is here?
Yeah.
What's the reason for that? And then, problem solving from that standpoint.
We wiped him at mid. Why are we running bot lane when Baron is up? Yeah,
because it's like, and the thing is, like, both of those coaches are equally valuable depending on the team they're on, right? Like, it's very much, it's just like a team to team basis thing for sure, where it's like the mediator coach, if it's a team of like 5 veterans, the guy who's going to mediate conversation is probably more important than the guy like telling them that their micro on wave 2 is bad. Yeah. Like, they probably know that they don't need that, but they need someone when 5-year veteran A and 5-year veteran B are in an argument. You do need someone who's going to be a neutral observer to probably facilitate an actual conversation there.
Yeah.
As to where, maybe a team of rookies needs a coach with a lot of veteran like experience to be like, guys, we wiped a team and we went and grabbed waves when Baron is open. What are we doing? Like,
It's tough. I mean, coaching is a tough job, but I also do believe that there was some favoritism.
I don't think everyone's a great coach either, right? Like, I do think there are coaches that are not.
Yeah, like
probably not pulling their weight.
There's some coaches that have a bias, or that have like, I mean, everybody wants to win, but it's like, you want to win with a select group of players, or maybe you're a coach from a team that, or you have
preconceived notion about a player's play style, and that maybe it doesn't work
Because
like,
not all the
in
time
your own
are
head, right?
not all the time are players selected by the coaching staff. Like sometimes
100%,
other players
yeah.
scout them out, and they talked about on the podcast. It was like Crystallis on Paravision used to play on a team called Creep Waves, and
Mhm.
it was him, a bunch of other guys, and it was a bunch of just players. Like they weren't like an org or anything. So they
Yeah.
scouted all their players themselves and put them together, got a coach, and
Just
made
ran
that
it,
work.
yeah.
And then then they got picked up by other teams, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, a lot of times the players are like, hey, I've played pubs with this guy. They perform really well. They can play at a high level. They can communicate well, and I think they'd be great on our team. Or they'd be like, hey, so and so on the team, because it's like, so the Parker kick came from the other players being like, hey, Parker's toxic. Parker's talking all this shit. Like, we got to get rid of him, right?
Yeah,
And I'm sure the
bad for
coaching
environment, get them out.
I'm sure the coaching staff had something to say about it too, but they had to probably come to their coach and be like, hey, this isn't working. I'm sure you see it. We need to do something about it. And
Sure.
then they made it happen. Then the org PR team put out the message and whatever else have you. So all that behind the scenes stuff. But
Interesting.
that's what's going on.
I love some inside baseball. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan.
Fucking K1 also just announced his return. So he's probably just going to pick up that slot on Heroic. Like,
They haven't announced a replacement yet?
no, not yet. I mean, it literally
Interesting.
happened like yesterday.
Oh,
Time of recording.
Okay. Damn.
On the 22nd, so
Yeah, okay.
this is like fresh. This is breaking
Fresh.
news.
Yeah, it's hot.
But yeah, so they're out of a carry player. They didn't qualify for Bangkok, so
Back to the drawing board.
back to the drawing board. Get ready for the next. I think this is like the last major tournament of the year. So just
That
get
would
ready
make
for the next
sense.
like tier 2 event or whatever, and kind of just show up after that, and hope you're ready for TI. I mean, with the display that everybody on the team was showing, I think South America has a real chance to make it decently far at TI this
A
year.
good run.
Yeah, maybe even like pie in the sky top 5, but I think like a top 8 finish would be great. Make it out of groups at least.
Mhm.
But we'll see how that goes. But anyways, that's enough Dota news because I'm just milking the Parker drama at this point. What's going on in your spheres? What I know there's been some league roster changes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm debating transitions here. Yeah, league roster changes. We'll start there. That's fine. So, league roster changes, obviously, we're in essentially the meat of league off season, considering most all leagues are going to start at some point in January, right?
Yeah.
So things gotta start getting locked into place. Plus, no worlds anymore, so no one's playing. So now's the time to do it, right? You're seeing some stuff. Obviously, we'll address the elephant in the room first, the spicy one. Zeus off of T1 World Championship squad. Doran in. I don't think anyone is going to tell you that is an upgrade. But the reason for this, the reason for this is where the spiciness gets involved.
Ooh.
There are two sides to the story. I believe Zeus's agent has responded. I haven't read Zeus's agent's response. But, so, to paint a picture, this happens, everyone's shocked, right? Because at first it was like, everyone's like, will this squad stick together? Will they want, they won again? Hopefully they stick together. And it seemed like things were maybe starting to fall in place from a contract standpoint to where it's like, maybe they would. Like, I know Gumayushi basically it was looking like everyone was falling in place to at least give it one more year, right? And then like maybe discuss, like no one was taking long-term contracts, but it was like Gumayushi, Carrier, they were all like, all right, 1 year deal. Gumayushi, if you look at like some of the stuff he's done, seems like he's in it for Gumayushi seems like if Faker's here, I'm here, and that seems like his kind of mentality. Because I was reading some stuff about how he took a 1 year deal so that his contract will expire at the same time that Faker's contract expires, which is why he took a 1 year renewal instead of like a multi-year renewal for himself. And then, it seemed like for the most part, everything's falling into place, like everyone who needs, they're back, right? World Championships, one more year. Let's do it again. Out of nowhere, T1 tweet goes up. Goodbye, Zayas. Thank you for your service. Signing T1 Doran. And everyone's like,
What's
what the
going
hell?
on?
Like,
What's
yeah.
happening here?
Whoa.
Why?
T1 ends up releasing. So I don't know who released a statement first, but I think it was T1. Essentially saying like, hey man, it came down to the wire, and like Zayas was kind of basically the long story short was they were like, bro was ghosting us, and you know, basically out of nowhere was like, actually, I'm good on your offer. They put out a statement saying like, we extended an offer and we were in talks, and then after we were in talks, like he was like, oh, he's not. They're talking when I say he, they're talking about Zayas' agent.
Yeah,
specifically
like
because he was exactly. He was the one that they were talking to. But they're like, we reached out, we gave an offer. He wanted a counter offer. We were like, we came back with like a counter offer, and then said he would consider it and look at it compared to other offers he was getting. We gave him a deadline. We waited until like half a day after the deadline we gave him. Still no response. No yes, no, nothing. We had to do what we had to do to make sure we were locked in for the season. We got Doran. Yeah.
Also, really, they only have to
basically
just keep him for the split, right? Because they could just make some moves mid-season if things like start panning out differently.
who
If
for
they,
Doran?
Yeah, if like they don't want to keep him, they just had to lock him in for their roster.
Well, yeah, it just seemed like it was coming down to the like. So here's the thing, right? Because it's a two-pronged effort. I've heard about this at least in from the LCS standpoint.
Yeah.
You're running into multiple issues when you're trying to lock, especially with T1, right? Because like they don't. Let's be real. They need a high-profile top laner. Like they're not going to settle for like someone on an 8th place team to be their top laner. It's just not going to happen. They need someone of a certain caliber in order to really make that shit work. And the problem is all of those people are going to be sought after, right? So like the longer you wait, the more those guys are already locking in deals. And like, so it seemed like it was getting to a point where it's like, okay, Doran is like, he's still in that upper tier of like LCK top laner.
Yeah.
And it's like, if he's open, we just got to get him before somebody else does. Because if we're out both Zayas and Doran, then what do we do? Like, you know, it becomes like one of those things. But yeah, so Zayas has officially been announced as he's moving to Hanwha Life. He's going to HLE as their top laner. I don't know where Kian's going, who was HLE's former top laner. That might be on this my little sheet here, actually.
Bench that guy?
Gen G. Gen G
okay.
is where Keen's going. So Keen has apparently moved over to Gen G. But yeah, so they lock in Doran because they're like, they can't wait anymore. They need a high-profile top laner, so they lock in Doran. T1 is literally the same, except for top lane, where Doran has come in. HLE now has Zayas, and then, you know, obviously I don't think anything has changed there either. It's Peanut, Zeka, Viper, Delight. So they a swap of top laners over there. But like I said, the drama comes out because T1's like, bro, basically pinned the whole thing on Zayas' agent. They were like, dude was trying to fuck us, and I don't know, like whatever. We did what we had to do. They came out claiming that his agent was like lying about his contract and like shit like that. His agent issued a response. So it's some hot button drama over this stuff, over a high profile contract over there. T1 is saying, yeah, it's on them, blah blah blah. But yeah. Either way, regardless of, you know, how it goes, it's, you know, we have essentially a trade, right? Doran was previous Hanwha Life. They literally just traded top laners, essentially. But it did not seem like it was a trade done because of, like, you know, they wanted to or anything. Like, you know, it was
kind of
like,
forced their hand.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at for LCK. I haven't really heard of anything else, but yeah, that was the major one over there. In our neck of the woods, obviously some rosters are coming together, so things are getting locked in. I believe 100T for their guest split is fully locked. They have General Sniper in top, River in jungle, I always laugh when I say that. What a good name. Um, Mid Quid, FBI is ADCing, and support is Ayla. Pretty good squad on paper. Cloud9, so Fudge is out. I think everyone last year kind of saw this coming. We knew that he stuck with the org after being like benched because like Jack said, hey, if you know, basically it seemed like it's like if Thanatos isn't working out and you're playing really well, we'll give you top lane back. But Thanatos honestly played fine. So I guess I didn't see need to shake the boat, but I kind of assumed, which I think a lot of people did, that if Fudge wasn't going to get a starting spot, he probably wasn't going to be at Cloud9 anymore because he can get a starting spot somewhere. So Fudge officially has left Cloud9, meaning their roster, I think 3 positions are locked. Thanatos is obviously still top lane. Blabber and jungle is not going anywhere. Support Vulcan is not going anywhere. Their mid and ADC are still rumored. Sven and Loki. Sven and ADC, Loki and mid. Loki, another Korean player, I believe. Let me double check. But I'm 90% sure he is Korean. Yes, right. South Korean. Yeah. So Korean mid. He is playing for Hanwha Life's challenger team, I believe, is who they're pulling him from. I've heard he's fine, but I mean, I haven't heard too much, and you know, I'll be honest, I'm not watching the LCK Challenger scene. But you know, Korean mid, there's like a certain level of expectation there that you can have. Dignitas, no word on the ADC. Jensen, Spica, and Isles for mid, jungle, and support respectively. I've heard Surdy in top lane, who's kind of if you know the tier 2 scene right now, Surdy is like probably the biggest prospect in our tier 2 system at the moment. Someone that's been talked about for, I believe, at least like a year.
Some good
people
NA
are like,
talent.
Yeah. Word on the street is people like, I know for like the last year, it has been like, why has no team pulled this guy up yet? For a while, but word on the street is, yeah, he might be getting pulled up to Dignitas for top lane, so that's cool. FlyQuest and Team Liquid, I think, are both confirmed that they're just straight up running the rosters back. Obviously, no reason to switch anything. In my opinion, it's probably the best thing you can do. So yeah, Fly Liquid are both running the roster right back. Disguised, I don't know if we have any confirmation on what their current roster looks like. I heard a rumor that Abadage was going to be their mid, former 100 Thieves mid laner, currently playing in another region right now. But yeah, so we're not sure what Disguise looks like. The 2 interesting rumors that are going around. So the Shopify roster is kind of a weird one that I've been hearing. I've been hearing Fudge is going over there for top. I'm hearing Contracts in jungle, Palafox in mid, and then B-Boy Seos in ADC support, which is like kind of a mishmash team. Obviously, I think Palafox is a good mid laner, Fudge is a good top laner, and Contracts is a good jungler. And B-Boy was kind of on a not great team. He was the guy who, I can't remember if it was last split or the split before, ADC on a not great team who still managed to look very good, and people were like, fuck, you know, if this guy had a good team around him, I wonder how well they'd be like performing. Yeah.
Something to kind of match his I want to say match his like level, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's like a pace to pro players, and if you have a squad with you that's gonna match that pace, or that you can kind of like mesh with, I think you have it, like, regardless of where you rank in the overall league, right, as a player, if you're on a squad that complements each other, I feel like you immediately just go up like a whole tier because of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, especially in games like this, it's the synergy that matters more than like the individual at the end of the day. So
it's a team game, you know, like straight up. Like it's a team game, and the fact is, in pro play, no role. I shouldn't say no. It is very rare that you're going to stomp a lane or position so hard that you can carry the game solo from that point. You know, Pro teams know if they're losing to play safe. There's only so much of a lead you're gonna get, on your own. If the rest of your team is also failing around the map, it's gonna collapse around you. You're not gonna really 1v9 a lot of the time. And then the last one, so Lion Gaming, is kind of interesting. Obviously,
they did that whole Koi merger, right?
Well, no, the Koi merger is out in LCK.
Okay.
You're thinking of Mad Lions.
I'm thinking of Mad
Lion
Lions.
Gaming, yeah.
Lions
Lion
the French
Gaming
one, right?
Yeah. No. So Lion's the ones from the South American that's getting put up into LTA.
Oh, fuck, dude. I'm all over the place.
Yeah. So Lion, word is I was seeing Licorice, Adi, Saint, Henna, and Lions. So it's like a South American team with Licorice on it. I don't know. Like it's very strange. But I like Licorice a lot, so I am hopeful that he will get a team. But those are the big ones. Yeah, that's most of it. Obviously there's shit going around in like LPL and like LEC as well. But I haven't taken too much attention. The only ones I know of off the top of my head for LEC are obviously the Jojo Pyun and Koi thing still hasn't been confirmed, but that feels like basically confirmed. So like, yeah, Jojo Pyun's probably playing in Koi over there. And then I think the only other thing I heard is that Mickey X and Upset might be going to Fnatic. And then G2 is getting Labrov and Skewmond for jungle.
Okay.
So, a couple of moves.
I forgot to mention that they're putting together a Dota squad, allegedly.
I think I saw you. I think you sent me the article on
yeah.
this. Yes, yeah. They're picking up a Chinese team, right?
Chinese
crazy.
players, I think. I'll pull it back up.
Okay, Chinese players, yeah.
It might be a Chinese squad, but some of those squads are like mixed Chinese, Southeast Asian. So.
Sure, yeah, just like a Southeast Asian
like
team.
Ame's team right now is like 4 retired players and like some Malaysian kid that they picked up. And that's like they retired after TI this year, and then during all the roster shuffling and stuff now, they just like, yeah, well, let's jump on a squad.
Right.
Oh wait, no, that is the team, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
G2's looking to sign that team, so yeah, it is
just
a Chinese
bring the
team.
full team forward.
Yeah, so Gaozu might get picked up by G2, so have a Chinese Dota org.
All right, well, sick. But yeah, that's your current roster changes for League at the moment. Everything, like I said, most of your big teams feel kind of locked for LCS, now known as LTA. I think the only question marks are obviously the Lion roster, the disguised roster, and the Shopify roster, but everything else is mostly in place except for like a few positions here and there with like Dignitas or Cloud9.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's it for that. Any other news outside of roster changes? I guess moving to. Actually, you know what? No, we'll save that for another time. Let's just get right into the main thing.
Okay.
It's actually, in my opinion, cleaner. We'll save that for another time.
Okay, we'll jump into that.
Yeah. So I hit, obviously, the intro talked about Arcane, and for everyone who's living under a rock, Arcane season 2 is out. I believe it's 6 or 9 episodes available at the time of recording. There's 6 for sure.
Animated series ever made.
Is that out there? I haven't even seen that.
No, that's real. Yeah, $250 million budget.
Good God.
Yeah. It's like Endgame levels.
That makes the promotion being literally over every game that they can possibly cram it into being a thing.
Yeah.
That makes more sense, I should say.
Yeah.
So obviously it came out. Obviously Arcane season 1. No spoilers, I guess we'll say ahead of time, right? And
Last
I don't really have much.
Drops tomorrow also.
Yeah, I would say no. We're not gonna talk. I don't even want to talk story too much. Like I'm not even here for that.
We're not talking about
this. Yeah. I will say I loved season 1, and I'm 3 episodes into season 2, and I'm like mostly fine on it. I have some things.
Yeah, I just finished Act 1, or I haven't watched past Act 1, but I hear the Warwick
so
reveal
I'm
is
same.
pretty
I
sick,
literally
and
also just finished Act 1, so yeah.
everyone's telling me to look out for that. But so far, it's great.
Yeah, so far it's great. Like I said, I have some points back and forth, but that's besides the point. The thing is, it's popular, right? Like that's the main thing. Obviously, no one can debate that it's a big deal. People were very excited about the first one. People were very into the first one. And the second season has been very big as well.
It's been
the
delivering
whole time
as a sequel.
Yeah, I hear, like I said, I've also heard great things about this one. And I think it's interesting because, like, how do I want to phrase this? Have you at any point seen, so like, obviously, I think we kind of talked about this briefly when we were talking about like the Capcom Pro Tour and the LCS and these whole things. Actually, that episode got scrapped because of audio, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever. Yeah, I just realized that like as I was talking about it.
Yeah.
We talked about how these leagues exist literally for at the fundamental, most basic reason they exist because of marketing, right? They market the game.
Yes.
Arcane falls under the same concept, right? This was made to market the game, right? And obviously they want it to be good and they want it to stand on its own and like all this other stuff. But like at its core, if League of Legends was not a video game, Arcane would not have been made, right? Like we can all agree upon that. Like
maybe in some timeline where someone had the exact idea for this, but as it exists, no, Arcane would not exist without League of Legends.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is like, so to make this show, it is like fundamental, it is like marketing for the game. Have you seen something? And granted, you know, we're operating on the assumption that season 2 was made, like the budget that you're talking about, right, applies because season 1 was so well received, right? There's no way they come back to it and are like, yeah, here's $250 million if the first season was like mids. So like, have you anywhere else under any other medium seen a competitive thing? I'm not even talking game. I'm talking like competitive thing marketed with a third, like an outside media source to the degree that Arcane is being pushed for League of Legends.
The only other example I have that's close enough is Dota Dragon Blood.
Sure.
Because that's also just a show that exists separately within the Dota universe.
Right.
Because I guess they wanted to flesh out their lore a bit more, and then it didn't perform as well, so they're like, nobody cares about the lore, and they just never did it again after like 3 seasons. But yeah.
And it had the same like feedback loop where like, you know, Champion from that made it back into the game, right?
Yeah.
Marceline, I believe, right? She was a Dragon Ball character, and then
Marcy got put in
the game
afterwards.
Yeah, Marcy, yeah. So yeah, to me, Arcane is like super intriguing, right? Because it's like, obviously, I think you want to try to find ways to make your competitive video game like appeal to a broader base. And like, I think it's obviously like we're going to be boiling down the idea a little bit because I think it's a multi-layered, like kind of complex issue, right? Where it's like they're trying to build like both a franchise and a universe, but like the core block of that franchise is a competitive MOBA, right? Not the most like beginner friendly thing on the
like,
planet.
Intro to yeah.
And so to market that at some level through a television series, pretty crazy. And like I said, I think it's done well. So I wanted to talk about, one, do you think, like, what lessons should someone else trying to attempt this take from something like Arcane, like positive and negative? If you have negative, as far as like, you know, when they want to do their third party, you know, or I should say other media, like different medium, for marketing their thing. And just if you have ideas from like a perspective of other shit that you like, competitive game or competitive thing,
Mm-hmm.
what would you want another franchise that you enjoy to do with this like outside media stuff, like outside of the normal playbook?
Yeah. So from the spheres that I know about, and I'll jump around here, but
Mhm.
I'll start off with League though, because League does something very interesting with the way they present
Mhm.
their storylines, where League of Legends as a game exists in a vacuum, right? It is essentially the Smash Brothers of Riot games, where
And they haven't or no, yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Because they retconned to like
they
the
retconned the
summoning
original
council shit.
lore.
Yeah, where they're like,
Yeah.
actually, this game, fuck that.
Yeah,
Like,
like
yeah.
like as Dota went all in on it. As far as I know, they might have like done something else. But the Battle of
Yeah.
the Ancients being a canon event, and every game of Dota is canon, and then a universal reset happens at the end of each game. It's fucking
Yes.
stupid. I mean, like it's like a cool comic book, but it's stupid. It's
Yeah,
fucking
right,
Dota
totally.
Flashpoint every time. Like, what am
I
I
agree
gonna
with
do
you.
about it?
It's too hard to build your shit off of
Yeah,
for sure.
and then they release
It's why
comics that try
like you
to
said,
tie it in,
yeah.
but
It's the reason why League literally did what you're talking about, where
yeah,
they're like, actually, the game is completely uncanonized. There's the world of Runeterra. Don't Summoner's Rift is
the
bullshit.
game
Like it's
exists.
Smash Bros. Yeah,
You can play the games, and if you enjoy the lore, you can now interact with the characters that you enjoy from the lore
through the world of
through
Runeterra.
the world
Right.
of yes, through the means of League of Legends, or even Legends of Runeterra, and soon 2X
Which
KO,
is in interestingly enough, right? You talk about Legends of Runeterra, right? Like
which has a
that
lot of lore
even
tie-in.
reply. Yeah, that one is actually much more closely tied to the lore
Mhm.
than like League of Legends is, right? Because
So
like you have cards that are describing
if you like
Yasuo's
Arcane,
fucking brother and master and like Draven.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you like Arcane and you want to try League of Legends, don't just play Legends of Runeterra, because you'll get the experience you want out of it. You won't get that from League.
it's
Everything
a
you like
decent
about
card
those
game.
characters is not you're not gonna get like any of that from League.
It's not a bad card game. I will give them credit. As
True.
someone who's very snobby about the card
It's better than
games he
Artifact.
plays, because I'm a the Gathering person, and I think Magic the Gathering is like probably the perfect card game. Legend of
Around for a
Runeterra is
while.
not bad. It's not bad. It's way better than Hearthstone.
But yeah. But I like what they did with separating it, so you have the game that people enjoy, and now you have
Yeah.
this media that other people can interact with and enjoy, and it helps build your brand to a larger
Mhm.
audience, right? Because
Sure.
now you're not just alienating everyone else to your
Yeah.
players and forcing people to invest time and hours into learning the game and playing the game just to get into it to experience all this. You now have
Yeah.
different modes for them to come into it, which is the same reason why I'll jump to 40K real quick, because 40K you can interact with Warhammer outside of just playing tabletop, buying minis,
For
or
sure.
anything else. You have video games. Space Marine 2 just came out. It's great.
Right.
They have shows. They're all on their own proprietary subscription
Like web
service,
series
though.
stuff, right? Yeah.
It's hard to access them, but they're not bad. But you do have to pay for Warhammer Plus, which sucks. GW, why don't you just put it on Netflix? They're working with Prime. Henry Cavill will make a show. It's happening at some point. Anyway, I digress.
Back at it again.
Right? They have books, and there's tons
Yeah.
of books that you can experience the lore and the world of 40K without having to paint minis, buy minis. Like, maybe you're not the most creative person, but you like reading fiction, right?
Yeah.
That exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just helps with the brand, because it helps you grow your not just your player base, but your fan base as a brand and as a company and as a game. And
Mhm.
it's good for esports, because you might not like playing League, but you might want to watch more League content, right? Arcane is done. You enjoy the world of League of Legends. You might want to know what other characters are doing. You go down the wiki rabbit hole, and you come across LCS games where you're just like, hey, what's this tree guy doing? I like trees, right? And then you see Maokai on your screen chucking nuts at people, and it was like, wow, that's awesome.
What's going on here?
Yeah. Probably not the most exciting Maokai thing to watch, but somebody's gotta like it, right? You might be
Yeah.
You might have played Mage Slayer. We haven't even talked about the other video games of Riot Forge, which is now closed, but
I was gonna say that
Yeah.
no longer exists.
yeah, you might have played Song
No,
of New
yeah,
or Mage
I
Slayer.
think there's something to that. That is a part of the conversation as well. I just think it's interesting. Like, obviously, yeah, you got Riot Forge, like you said. Even Legends of Runeterra, I think, falls under that like umbrella where it's like this is a game outside of League of Legends that like bleeds back into League of Legends, and then the single player games, Mage Seeker, the fucking new farming one, or like the new adventure one, and the Yordle farming
the
one.
Teemo farming one.
Yeah. You know, all that stuff obviously bleeds back in. To me, it's like there you're like grabbing. I mean, 2XKO, right, is kind of the same concept where you're like reaching out to other genres and being like, oh yeah, here, you know, here's how you get your taste, and then you're like, oh, I wonder. Maybe you finish playing that and you're like, oh, I wonder where this stuff comes from, and then you look back to the source, and now they got you, you know, playing Rift maybe. To me, it's just like the extra step of just like television series is like pretty
especially like a
nutty.
Netflix
Like,
series. Like they made it accessible to a ton of people. Like everybody, pretty much everybody has a Netflix now, right? Cable television's dead, unfortunately, and everybody's watching streaming services. So
True.
It's available on Netflix, the biggest, arguably the biggest streaming service, right? As opposed to what Warhammer does and puts it on their own
proprietary
which
website
is
number
stupid.
4.
But right, and even outside of like shows, right? Doesn't Apex have like comics that they release?
So Apex has a comic, like if we want to talk about like other people that are currently doing it to varying degrees, from what I know, yes, Apex has a comic that they do from time to time. I don't know how
They'll do it
constant
like every
is.
couple of seasons or something, whatever. Like
Yeah,
a major story happens.
it's like there's like a level of like continuity to basically it seems like they kind of do it to add in, you know, characters here and there. They had, in my opinion, a brilliant marketing campaign back. This is a long time ago. This is back when Revenant was getting unveiled. Unfortunately, this was actually completely destroyed by like leakers and data miners, which I think fucking sucked. Because for those who don't know, Revenant is like an assassin. Like that's his whole thing in like Apex lore is that he's a killer. He kills people and he's like a fucking robot. Yeah.
Right.
The whole marketing campaign for Revenant was they were actually marketing an entirely different hero, and at the very end, Revenant was going to kill that hero and be the actual
Which
champion, like taking the place of the spot. And yeah, sick as fuck. Like a really cool, fun, like way to bring out this new legend where they were literally going to market another legend for a while. And that legend was going to get offed by Revenant, and Revenant was going to be the actual legend into the game. And like a weekend, data miners are like, actually, it's Revenant. This guy, he's coming out. We mined it. It's leaked, and like it
just killed the
really.
hype
It's
for it.
really shitty. Yeah, it totally killed the vibe because everyone knew it was coming. But yeah, a lot of that was being told through the comics. A lot of the new legend stuff is usually told through this like comic that they'll release whenever a new legend comes out. Just kind of usually to integrate them. Yeah.
That like kills that though, because they release like physical releases, right? They do like a physical comic book, or is it only through?
They might. I actually don't know. I'm not sure.
I feel like I've seen like a printed one, but maybe it was like a fan thing I saw on Reddit. I don't remember. But like CS, when they were doing operations, and Dota, whenever they have like a new character come out, they'll do a comic, but it's in launcher. So it's like, this is cool, and it makes me engage with the world of a game that I enjoy, but it's also locked into that game, so other people aren't experiencing it, which I think would be better if it was released like.
I looked it up. It is a Dark Horse series.
It's a Dark Horse. There we go.
So you can get it physical.
Yeah. So like that's good. That's good for
overtime.
Apex exposure because a lot of people after Titanfall 2 really liked the world that was created through that one.
Yeah.
And Apex extending that through the comic book series is great, and it's good for business. Fucking Marathon, which isn't out yet, but
yeah,
I love Marathon. I played the originals and I think they're great. Just fun sci-fi shooter. If you haven't played them, play them. Boomer shooters are the superior first-person shooter. Mac,
right.
Mac.
I'm thinking of Oni. Was their PS2 game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
old Bungie, baby.
Old Bungie, man. What an era. But they had a whole ARG Now, granted, it wasn't anything like too crazy. Like it wasn't like a lore or like story thing. It
Mhm.
was just a dev diary. But other games have had ARGs, like the Meet the Pyro back when TF2 was
Yes.
like a
Yes.
huge thing, right? They
The
had
early Overwatch cinematics.
Overwatch cinematics. They left codes and like the Omnic language and stuff like that for different heroes, and it let people engage. They had to learn the alphabet and crack the codes and stuff like that. So
ARGs are good. Yeah, that's a good call.
ARGs are good. There's not as many of them as there used to be.
There's
Unfortunately,
you bring up like speaking of Bungie, funny enough, there was a classic one. Do you know about the ODST stuff?
the bees thing.
Not the bees one, the janitor.
No, I only know about the
So
bees for like Halo 2 or 3 or whatever it was.
yeah, I was gonna say there was that one too. So this was something I physically took part in actually. So there was a point I was a big Halo fan growing up, as I think most people at that time were. Got really into one of my best friends for a long time. This guy named Justin, who we call Juice affectionately.
Shout out Juice.
I've known him since like the 4th grade in elementary school. But like one of our early bonding points is we both liked Halo a lot. And like I played Halo. The only game I've probably played put as much time into as like, there's like a big three of like I think if I had to like how much time have you put into two games specifically, Halo 3 and Halo Reach are like up there with like World of Warcraft for me. And I think very few games even enter that like echelon of like time spent on them for me. So we spent a lot of time doing that. So Halo 3 ODST, this like single player expansion, but it was released physically because we didn't really do DLCs like that yet. Was before it came out. So we're big into Halo, right? Enough so to where like I'm on the Bungie forums, as a kid in high school, like straight up. Like we're on the Bungie forums, like we're going through talking to people, like seeing stuff, people posting about shit.
Chatting it up.
Yeah. Out of nowhere, this account starts appearing on the Bungie forums called the Janitor. And he's just posting keep it clean everywhere. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Starts popping up all over the place. He'll post a couple times here, a couple times there. He starts posting like more cryptic, like weird messages, stuff with encodings and stuff. Obviously, the whole forum's working towards it. Basically, what this all led up to was the unveiling for the Janitor is the AI that runs New Mombasa, which is a place in Halo lore. If you know the lore, it's the city that the starting mission of Halo 3 takes place in, or around. It's like one of the cities in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Halo 3 ODST takes place in that city. You're going to there after the Covenant ship jumps or whatever. Not important. But that ARG, like I said, I actively took part in that. Like I saw the posts, so, I was seeing that stuff happen.
He was
and
there.
Yeah, it was just really fucking cool marketing for ODST because at first we didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was just this weird, like, obviously some people pretty quickly like trace it to like, okay, there's like something to this, like something Bungie related, but like we don't know what. Like it's not just like some freak. But like, yeah, the seeing that shit unfold was crazy. And like, yeah, it was all, like you said, it was marketing up to just the release of ODST. And it was like one of the first kind of hints we got about that.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted with
No,
the messages.
You're fine.
Messages. Holy shit.
Messages.
Yeah, man, we're taking care of business over here at the HotKeys office. Making money moves.
There's a big desk. My desk is always filled with papers.
Print is not a dead industry. I don't fight anybody who says otherwise.
I want desperately to believe you. I'll say that much.
Listen, if
It's like, I'm trying
if it
to
was a
think.
dead industry, I wouldn't have KDA posters posted up all around my city every time something happens. I wouldn't have Louis Vuitton League of Legends posters posted around my city whenever I go outside.
Shout out to Louis Vuitton, dude. Shout out to Louis Vuitton working with KDA, League of Legends, Lightning from Final Fantasy.
Lightning from Final Fantasy, that is true.
You can read that interview, baby. You can look that shit up. The Louis Vuitton, the Louis Vuitton fucking lightning from Final Fantasy 13 interview, complete with pictures in Louis Vuitton gear. 10 out of 10.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I'm trying to think. So Arcane, right?
Yeah.
I'll ask you, I guess, before I state my own point. What do you think? Because you've seen the first season, right?
I saw the first season, yes.
What do you think is Arcane doing right that makes it so successful as an outside source of like media? And if you have maybe a complaint, something you think it's doing wrong, feel free to say that too. But I'm curious as to, what do you think it's doing right? Because I have my own thoughts of why I think it's successful on its own.
So visually, I think is like the biggest thing. It's got like the appeal that Spider-Verse had. Like the animation, the
a unique
stylization,
sure.
right? Yeah. Like that whole like painterly thing, and the behind the scenes for it is also really interesting. How they made that whole look and how they kind of just use that to be the design of League of Legends going forward. Like if you look at the world cinematic, right, it has that Arcane art style where they bring out like Faker with the Azir stuff and everything.
And Linkin Park.
Linkin Park did the intro for this new season. Well, no, it's still the Imagine Dragons.
No, they just it's still the Imagine Dragons.
Like
I know what you're talking. They
like,
show up in the first episode. They do like an acoustic rendition of it.
Yeah, Heavy as the Crown.
Oh man,
not my favorite. Listen.
Yeah, I would say I was not a fan. That shit happened, and I was like,
shout out Stand Atlantic. It should have been Bonnie, but she is loyal to that band, and I respect that. So.
I like the song. I think them using that the acoustic version of whatever. We're gonna get into spoiler. I keep doing this. I just thought that was a bad bit. I was just like, I don't like. Fuck off! Like if you're gonna use the song, just use the song. Don't create this dumb acoustic version.
And they did like 3 times too. Like it was like the song didn't just pop up once. They kind of made it happen.
The episode is named "Heavy as the Crown."
That is true. It is it is like a self insert of that song.
Yeah, it's very. I feel a little shoehorned.
Yeah,
but you're right. Really stylistically, the art style, 100%, I think, is making it stand out. So. Here's something that I was telling everyone about, because when I got into Arcane Season 1, and I was like, all right, let me watch this shit.
Yeah.
I fully expected cash grab ass show with some budget behind it. Whatever. This is going to be a fucking 7 out of 10.
Like every other video game time we've had before that.
Right.
Like the Max Payne movie and all that other stuff. Ready Player One even.
Halo Legends.
Isn't Jinx in Ready Player One also?
Halo Legends. I never watched that movie. I watched the 30-second Gundam cameo one time on YouTube because someone told me a Gundam shows up in it. So I had to be there.
Okay, no, she's not. I heard it somewhere, but somebody was lying. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I go in. I'm like 7 out of 10 at best. Let's get it. Let's get this shit. I'm watching. And here's what I expected fully. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a show. They're going to tell the story of Jinx. Cool. Fine. Yeah. Totally fine plot. Man, I can't wait for, season Heimerdinger's in the show, guys. I don't know. I got to spoil certain things. Obviously, if you watch season 1, you know.
Yeah.
I was ready for Heimerdinger to show up and the show to put a big old billboard over his head. It's like, look, that's Heimerdinger. He builds turrets. Turrets! Q. That's his Q!
The little gun guy.
Look, he's using his Q right now! Look, Jinx used her W! Look at her W! Vi's using Alt! Guys, look, Vi used Volpret Alt! I was expecting...
She said the word. She, calls out, a special move.
Yes, that's fully what I expected. This whole... I'm like, this is what I'm gonna get. The show does not try to fucking... To make a crass term, the show's not trying to jerk you off for being a League of Legends fan. It's not sitting there going you played the game. Look, she's wearing Rabadon's death cap. Ha ha. Rabadon's death cap's on her head. Ha ha.
They did hide items and stuff in the shop though, in the background.
But no one points a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
No one is like pointing at it going, haha, look at what we did.
Yeah, you'd have to be like looking to be like, hey, wait, that's needlessly large rod.
Episode 1 of season 2, I'm fine saying this is not a spoiler. Guess what? In the back of a scene, there's a trophy of an animal hanging it up, and like it's raptors. If you know, like you look, it's like, oh look, that's raptors. Like I know what that is. No one is going like. There's not a scene where two people stop in front of that trophy and they go, "I killed that in the jungle," and then they like hard deadpan the camera at you and smirk.
Just
like,
look directly at it.
Yeah, like like it's.
There was no scuttle crab in the Singe scene with the giant axolotl. Like it wasn't an axolotl. It was like the big lizard thing, the newt.
Yeah.
There was no scuttle crab, and it was not like a close up of scuttle crab walking and then pan up and it's singed.
That's what I'm saying, right? Because that is fully what I expected. Because I feel like a lot of the times they're just like, you played the game, look, you played the game, and look, we know you played the game. And to me, that often comes across as like pandering and cheesy and shitty. Yeah. And it gets in the way of like telling your own thing. Arcane Season 1 did not do that at all. Like, that stuff is there. If you played the game or if you knew League of Legends lore, you could look at things and be like, oh, Singed, right? You brought up Singed. The person that is Singed isn't even, that name is never said until season 2. Like, literally. Yeah. Like, it's never brought up.
My fault, it's not even in part 1. It's in part 2 of season 2, but like, here's assuming my thing our audience is esports adjacent, you know who Singed is.
Yeah, if you knew when I'm not even saying when he shows up in season 1, but like, if you know, like you can make the guess pretty quickly. Like, I think I know who that's supposed to be.
Can figure it out. He's got the chemical thing going. He's a scientist.
He's got the mask on. He's got the face. Yeah, like it's pretty obvious. IMO. Like you tell.
That new skin, by the way, is fucking gnarly, dude.
I don't know if I've seen it yet, but I think I know what you're talking about.
I'll find a picture. I'll send it to you.
Yeah. And like, I fucking and I think that is actually one of its strong suits that probably gets talked about a bit, but yeah, it's just like that show is not. It's not like pandering, man. It's not like sitting there and just being like, you played the game. Look at all the fun knowledge you've got. But that stuff is like still there because you played the game. You just get like a little bit of extra bonus context to stuff, you know? Like I said, I got to look at that guy and be like, I'm pretty sure that's Singed.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like, sick. I think that's Singed.
You got to piece it together with the rest of the people watching.
And like, it gives you just kind of new insight and stuff. Oh, yes. Okay. So I have seen this photo because I'm playing TFT. And
it was in one of the trailers.
Yes. Yeah. That is a sick skin.
That's great.
And like there's stuff like that. Obviously, you know, like Victor as like a character. If you're watching League of Legends blind, you see Victor on the screen and you're like, that's Victor. If you play League of Legends and you see Victor on screen, you're like, that's Victor? Oh, okay. Like, how are we gonna get from Victor A to Victor B? Like, and that's cool. And like I said, they didn't need to like create a dumb scene of like Victor in season 1 walking up to a fucking metal box and being like, Chase, what if we evolved this? Like, you know, like you don't need any of that shit. Like you really don't.
He didn't have his Mechanicus moment where he's like, since the moment of my birth, I knew the flesh was weak. Or whatever the line is.
Right. All of that stuff, like I said, it's just like, hey, this is a show in the League of Legends universe. Period, hard stop. If you have knowledge of this universe, you'll get to pick things up. But like, we're not sitting here going like I said, the only way I can paint it is they're not like pointing at a scene and going, they use Q. Look, she used Q. Like, you know, like I'm not getting any of that. And
that's jinxy. Look at them. It's going to stun somebody.
Dude, so even down to the final scene of fucking season 1, I mean, she uses ult. Like, that's all I'm going to say. But, like, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. She uses ult, and, like, that's cool. I thought that was sick that's how that ends. But, like, That's it. If you don't know, like it's totally
just a
fine. It
fight.
keeps theme. It just happens. Thing happens. Whatever. But like seeing it myself, I'm like, damn, she ulted. That's cool. Like that is to me one of the strongest points. Production value aside, because obviously that goes without saying. I don't even think we need to mention that it has an insane artistry. The production
style and
budget and style.
is...
The fact that they're willing to fully invest in that show as a show and like put money behind it and artists behind it and all that stuff is a big deal.
The potential for more stories through the universe to further the League brand and everything.
I mean, I'm assuming you also saw that article where they were talking about how like they're planning on like, we want to do more shows. They're not going to be like Arcane shows, but like, yes, we want to keep doing shows
to tell
elsewhere. Which I think is a brilliant idea.
Show me a Kathia. I want to see a Kathia before the void.
Anything, dude. You got a Kathia. We could talk about, fucking there's Ixtal stuff. Like you can go so many places. Bilgewater, like all this stuff.
You can do your Lord of the Rings epic of Noxian Siege of Ionia.
Yeah, I mean that stuff. Obviously Rise ends up fucking like everywhere, so it's like you could follow Rise.
That can be
all
your Marvel the Watcher,
Yeah. But yeah, that to me is like the most. That is the thing that really made Arcane, in my opinion, stand out and be as successful as it was, is even though it is inherently a League of Legends tie-in project, like it is meant as marketing material for this game, because it's a tie-in project to it. They let it breathe on its own. Mm-hmm. Like it stands by itself. I had two friends who I was like, watch this show. Like I'm telling you, they've never played a game of League of Legends in their life. And they both were like, yeah, the show's fucking sick. I love that show. Yeah, I'm down for season 2. Like, they were, and that's because it stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And
it does its own thing.
I feel like so often these projects are made and they're just like, fans will love this. And like, maybe that's true. But like, I also feel like as a fan of that thing, I also just want good media.
I want to share it with other people and not have them have to know everything of the intricacies of this game. Right, like if there was like a Smash Brothers show, I wouldn't want them to like be throwing around like wave dashing as like a term every now and then. Like that's like a special move they do. It's like he wave dashed. It's like Mario's like tweaking out about it. Like that would be crazy because like the uninitiated would be like, okay,
what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, like what the hell? But
100%. Like so. Yeah, I'm debating of talking about a thing because there's like a thing in season 2. Like I think a good example. You said you only saw episode 3, right?
I've only seen up to episode 3. Yeah.
Okay, so never mind.
Season 2.
There's a thing later on that is exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like they literally just show you an image, like nothing else happens. It's like an image.
Yeah.
And like I think if you are a normal show watcher, you're like, cool, okay. The emotional resonance is still there. Like you're like, I resonate with the emotion of the scene.
Right.
If you are a League of Legends person that knows League of Legends champions, this image happens and you're like, fuck, that's kind of crazy. Like, it is one of those moments. Yeah.
My moment was with Mbessa and the Witch, and I was like, wait a damn minute.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I turned around my girlfriend. Right? I was like pogging. I'm just like, you don't realize how peak this is right now.
The second the flower showed up, I was like, damn. Okay, true. Like that's pretty sick. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's also a tie-in with that in the Mbessa book, but go watch the Necrit video for that because that's
so
he breaks it down real good.
I'm glad you brought in books because that segues to, I guess, something I think is interesting because that is something that I think is more often explored with this kind of stuff. I guess just because it's easier, you essentially need one person to write a book. Not that it's like easier, but you don't need like a team for that. You need a writer, you're not animating and an editor.
Yeah. And then publishing studio somewhere.
Right. And those can be very good. Obviously, there's tons of like short stories that they've written for League of Legends. Mm-hmm. Do you know if they have like full-on novels? I actually don't know.
They have a few. They have a few. They have some for the Ruined King. I know they pumped out some.
Sure,
for that.
yes.
They have the Mbessa novel that just came out.
Okay.
I think they had one for Mage Slayer as well, or whatever Silas event. I'm not too
There was
sure.
that was a comic actually, I believe, right? I believe
Yes.
yes,
Let me
the
see.
Mage Tier stuff was a comic, all of the Silas stuff. But yeah, so those happen. World of Warcraft is a really big example of that actually. There's a lot of WoW novels. A lot of them very good. If you're just a generic like you like fantasy a lot person, I highly recommend Rise of the Lich King.
There's also a
That
Garen
novel is
novel, by the way.
okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Cool.
So
Um, yeah, like WoW has like Rise of the Lich King's a fantastic novel. That's actually really good. Some of the Halo books, surprisingly, for people who want like extended universe stuff
Halo books
there
are
or
really
like are
good.
interested. Some of them are great. There are a couple that I've read. I think 5 or 6 of them, like over many
Kind of
years.
sleepers.
There are some that are really good. I think like obviously Ghost of Onyx is really good. Cole or Blue Team, I think is the name of that one. That one is really good. The Fall of Reach is a really good Halo novel. There are some stinkers. Cold Protocol fucking sucks. I hated that novel. Um, the ones that prequeled the second trilogy, they released a series of 3 books that basically served as like a way to brush you up on what's happening in Halo 4, 5, and 6. Like they were like kind of a prequel sort of deal to the new trilogy,
Yeah.
called Primordium, Cryptum, and I forget the name of the third one. I read Primordium and Cryptum. I believe Primordium was the first one and Cryptum was the second one. Primordium's solid. Cryptum sucks. And I never read the third because I hated Cryptum so much. So yeah, hit or miss there, but yeah, I think you see that a lot as far as like these off media stuff as well. World of Warcraft also had a movie that's like kind of mid. But
It's a
I have a
movie. It's a
whole
movie that came out for
I have a
certain.
whole lot of we could have our own show where I talk about where that movie went right and where it went wrong. And I think one of the biggest things is they chose a shitty event to do a movie for in the Warcraft universe. I think there are way better way better events in the timeline to pick if you're going to tell a standalone movie in the Warcraft
Could have done
universe.
Arthas, all things considered.
Right. And listen, as someone who just told you, read Rise of the Lich King. It's an amazing book. Just make the book a movie. I'd straight up. You'd be served so much better. Just making Rise of the Lich King a movie. It's just a really good, relatable storyline. You don't need a ton of Warcraft lore besides it. Like it's just like you watch this guy get desperate, down on his luck, and turn to the dark side. You know, it's a very simple tale as old as time, and it just works. Like it's really good. Like straight up. Like yeah. So, getting back to what we talked about initially, right? Where, I think we've gone over what we think Arcane did right. Do you have something in mind for a series that you like that you would like to see explored?
Oh man.
This is a tough one. I've been racking my brain about it for a little while.
Throughout, like I guess since I'll keep it like esports adjacent because that's what we do.
Yeah,
around here.
specifically, like a competitive style game. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I say a thing, I mean literally like the way League of Legends is a hard game to get into inherently because it's a MOBA, something like that.
I wish Dota did it better. Honestly, I think Dragon's Blood. I don't think Dragon's Blood dropped the ball as much as it kind of just appealed to Dota fans a bit too hard. Like I think it's personally right. I've seen the first season and a half. I didn't finish it because it kind of was just pandering to fans at that point.
Sure, yeah.
But I wish they went a little harder with it. Dota has a great environment, I can't say story because there's like no story, but they could have like set something up. If they want to include the Battle of the Ancients, they could reference that, or if they want to do anything, because those characters have great lore individually, and then tying it together would have been really cool. But
do you think that is the problem of Dota specifically, though? Like, do you think some of those characters are too outlandish to tie together?
Parts of it, yeah, like characters like Weaver and Arkwarden being like these primordial spirits that could never like interact with the goings on within the world of Dota would be kind of hard. But it's fantasy.
You don't need everybody.
Yeah, you
don't
need
like
everybody.
that's the thing. that's the whole point of Arcane, right? It's
Yeah.
it's regionally focused.
Yeah.
Like that's why they do that. You
That's
don't have
also
to
a
talk
thing
about.
that League did well. They set up regions, right? Like a lot of these, like you might have one character that represents one area within Dota as an entirety. Like Juggernaut,
Right.
Juggernaut represents the Isle of Masks.
And
No other character.
No one, yeah.
Granted, they're all supposed to be dead, so I get it, but still, bad example.
Right.
But still, like the Hidden Temple, right? Only referenced by Templar Assassin.
Yeah. Okay.
No
yeah,
other,
totally.
no other. Like, there's a whole school of assassins somewhere. There's a whole like priestesshood or whatever of these assassins, and never mentioned by any other characters. Nothing like that. They almost tied it together with Oracle. That was like their linchpin in the whole thing to just kind of keep it all happening. But no, nothing there. I think maybe like some kind of like military. Give me MASH, but make it Counter-Strike. Like, I think that would be really funny.
That's a badass call.
Like, that'd be sick. Like, just give me what MASH is, but then make it CS, right? And then I don't know how you're gonna include like the skins market. Maybe one of them has like a blue gen Karambit, and that's like the crux of the show.
Some guy shows up with his like the Eye of Raw AK or whatever. He's
Yeah,
just like, look at what I got out
like
of
a
this
Speed
case.
Racer style Rocket League anime would be cool.
Damn, you got a whole bucket list idea.
Dude,
Okay,
listen,
I'm digging
man.
it. I'm
Listen,
digging
man.
it. I'm digging it.
What else do I have? Honor of Kings is getting a show on Secret Level. Secret Level has like a bunch of stuff coming out involving.
Yeah, I think Secret Level's an interesting. Like, obviously, it's tying in all sorts of different games, but specifically this idea of telling one-off episodic stories inside of multiple game universes is very cool.
That'd be cool.
100%.
You know what did it good? You know what Valve did that was good? The TF2 comics. And
you're right.
like Meet the Heavy, all that. The animated shorts they did, the comics that expand TF2's lore some more. Half-Life lore existing. Half-Life has a deathmatch mode, therefore it can be played competitively. Therefore, it can be an esport.
Oh yeah.
It's an excuse to talk about Half-Life.
Talk about Half-Life.
Listen, man, it had a 20-year anniversary. I can't let this go unsaid, but the Half-Life lore being connected across multiple games within Valve.
Did you read the stuff they said in the commentary about Half-Life 3?
Makes me sad, but I'm glad
it makes me sad too.
I'm glad that there is like some like want to make it. Project Borealis is in production and happening.
It's one of those things where I feel like it just confirmed what we were all thinking, where it's like clearly like they just went back to the board too many times on this and they just had to shelve it because they didn't know what they wanted it to be. Like,
they're also very aware that it's been so long that even if they did release a sequel to it, it probably won't live up to the expectations at this point.
No, so
it might be just better to leave it to obscurity.
Yeah. It's crazy to hear about that intro sequence.
I think Crossfire has some media already existing, but we're not in war-torn regions of Central Asia. Like, we're not playing Crossfire. Like,
not a Korean, bro.
I'm not from Indonesia.
The only Crossfire I know is that game with the balls.
Southeast Asia loves Crossfire, man. And
I know.
It's like China and Southeast Asia. I like watching the Crossfire Rage compilations. I like the parkour maps.
So people, this is, I don't think this has been brought up. But you want to unlock hidden Praetor lore. Obviously, people know I have like days since VTuber mentioned. This doesn't count, by the way. This does not count against my streak. I have a streak going. I just want it on record. This mention of VTubers does not count as breaking my.
We have a tally in our Discord of how many times you mentioned it in an episode, and so far we've made it like what, 3 episodes now.
We're at least 3 to 4 episodes in with 0 VTuber talk for me.
So
okay. So this one does not count. Yeah, this is my one thing.
I'll give this one. We're talking about mixed media, so you're allowed to mention VTubers.
Right.
Relevant.
And then so yeah, I got really into K-pop. Still kind of am. I don't keep up as much anymore with like new groups and stuff because the groups I liked basically are now old groups and they like basically make an album once a year and I listen to that, and then all the new groups are kind of ass in my opinion, so I stopped listening. But like while I was, thrown headfirst into the discovery of K-pop, the music genre, one of the things that like kind of crossed my desk during that time was that the girl group Twice all have skins in Crossfire. Every one of them, every member is in Crossfire with voice lines.
That's awesome.
So like, yeah, no, like you're right. Southeast Asia fucking loves that game.
That's
like,
like
they're
that.
fully invested. Yeah. Like, wild shit. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of other like esports. I mean, the closest thing to like a COD thing we had was that Hardcore Henry? Remember that movie?
oh my god, I forgot.
The
Yeah,
first
now that you
person
mentioned
movie?
it, I
It'd be
know
sick.
it. Yeah.
It's like the closest thing we had to COD.
I'm surprised COD hasn't tried to make like a shitty show.
They
Way
totally
Halo made
could
a really
too.
shitty show.
Like you can turn the Modern Warfare storyline into a movie, and I think
And I
that'd
feel
be
like
fine.
your average high schooler, because like that game is like still being played like amongst high schoolers, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously, like everyone knows that your average high schooler would probably eat that shit up.
Oh
right?
yeah, dude.
Like
Like the
100. The second you like show Ghost in a show, like your high school boy is like fucking sick.
he's got a fucking balaclava with some paint on it. It's awesome.
He's running through the favela.
No, you make the whole movie one of his from the one of the recon missions from the remake where you have to like direct him with like pings.
Yeah. Going dark. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. So, I've thought, I was thinking long and hard. I think obviously, there's kind of the go-getters where it's like you could probably make Dota a better show. Street Fighter has multiple movies and shows, all of which are pretty much mediocre. I think most fighting games generally do. I am excited for the Guilty Gear anime. Hopefully that's good. I don't know how much money they can actually put behind that, so I have a little bit of an asterisk there. But hopefully it's good. I would be down. Like,
media tie-ins from, I'm not going to specify Japanese devs, but Eastern developers don't tend to be of the same quality. Before anyone says Edge Runners, CDPR is a Polish company, and they
reached out to a legit ass studio though. Yeah,
right.
You're right.
This isn't like we're making a show, and this anime studio that has made 3 slice of life animes that ended up on somebody's like C list is going to produce
not who we
it.
want. Yeah. No, I mean you're right, because that to me is traditionally the problem. If even if you look at like the old Street Fighter like animated movies and shows and stuff, it's just inherently low budget. And like I get it, they don't want to break the bank on that shit, like 100%. I mean, fuck, look at Capcom and the Resident Evil movies, like the animated ones, or Final Fantasy VII is a weird one because Advent Children at the time was definitely cutting edge. It just like hasn't aged super well. But the problem with like the Street Fighter series and shit, or with like the shows and the movies is they are just generally kind of low budget, and it doesn't look fantastic.
Even like the most recent Mortal Kombat movie, which was
or
like
the Tekken
fine.
show. I don't know if you watched Tekken.
Oh god, I forgot fucking Bloodlines came out.
Bloodlines, bro.
I removed that from my mind,
man. Yeah, Bloodline was totally a thing, and it's just like
midlines, dude. Holy.
Yeah, it's like you look at that show, and at first you're like, to me they made like a valiant effort. I'm gonna post in the Discord this image I'm looking at, which really just sells my point, but you'll see it. The thing is like I feel like look at that image of Jin right there and tell me that Tekken Bloodlines isn't trying to pass off a low budget as an art style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a valiant effort because obviously Bamco is just not going to give the money that maybe Tekken deserves.
But even then, like,
tell
they
that
put
story.
so much into the cinematics in 8 to like be very like
good. Like, no, exactly.
They're realistic, like the graphics, everything about it. It could have just been...
And like, here's the deal, man. Like that show, the Tekken storyline is batshit. Like you could do so much fun shit with like an animated series for it, and like
It's like trying to have a
you're right. It just
fucking
it just
KOF
kind of gets
show.
shafted.
That would be
Oh my god,
actual
no.
insanity.
So real shit. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because that is actually like when we're talking about like you were throwing out stuff. One of my pie in the sky things, legitimately, I'm not even kidding, is the like would be KOF. Like if you were like, what fighting game series do you want to see made into like an anime done by like an actual like legit ass high budget AAA anime studio? I actually put KOF higher than almost everything else on my list. Guilty Gear might be the only one up there with it in terms of just raw like cinematic appeal.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever look at the panels for the KOF manga? Like straight up.
I've seen a few. I've seen a few of like the just the panel. I haven't read it.
Yeah. So like obviously they were trying to the KOF manga is like trying to legitimize the tournament portion of it a little bit, right? So it's like people showing up in locations for their tournament matches, stuff like that. But like I would love to tell you who did the art for it. I don't know. But the art for it is fire. And that's my thing is like I would be so down for like KOF to be just like a short, 12 episode series that just follows a King of Fighters tournament like in lore. And like I don't need Benimaru like, I don't need the like Benimaru backstory. Like just give me 12 episodes of like, Team Japan progressing through a KOF bracket or like something like that.
Azuma is who did the artwork for
it's
KOF
great
manga.
Like if you've never seen the panel art, like it's really good. Like the manga looks fantastic and like is doing like cool shit like with the fights and stuff. So yeah, dude, that shit would be so sick to see KOF as like an animated series,
He also
like
did
a
Tokyo
short animated
ESP?
series. They
Oh wait, no, it's just
like
a character in the show.
Okay.
Never mind.
Okay. I was like, I wouldn't be shocked because that dude, the art was crazy. It looked good. So yeah, KOF absolutely on the short list for like if we were gonna get a show for something like that is what I would want. The other one that comes to mind is as far as like competitive obtuse games. So
You got
I was thinking, what if? So what you do is give me an X-Men 98 style show, but it's Marvel versus Capcom.
that'd be sick. That or like their What
Right?
If style. I think those would be like
Yeah,
two.
the What If style would be cool. But yeah, that's the because so
That would
we
be
all
dope.
we all meme on Infinite, right?
Yeah.
For many reasons. I appreciated that they were trying to legitimize the story of like, here's Zero talking to fucking, Cyclops. And like, Zero from Mega Man talking to Cyclops. That would be fucking sick. It would just be cool as fuck. Granted, I feel like shows like that, right? So shows like that, these crossover ones, I think inherently have to lean into pandery stuff a bit more, because it's just like I said, I think you have to acknowledge the absurdity on the screen at a certain point. Like you can't have, let's say you're gonna go this far, maybe they don't. You can't have Phoenix Wright standing next to Daredevil and not like crack lawyer jokes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's not.
But that's
have
part
to
of
do
the
Right.
Marvel versus Capcom like charm, right? It is those interactions where it's comic booky and
right. It's gonna be inherently cheesier.
Yeah.
So like if we're talking about like the cheesier, more fun style, that like give me the Marvel
Yes.
What If, the Disney Plus show that is a Marvel versus
MVC.
Capcom crossover. If we're talking about just something that can stand on its own, more akin to like an Arcane, legit give me I legitimately want, I think, a fucking Tekken show not focusing on the Mishima family, but about just random other characters and things they are doing during the timeline of Tekken would be sick as fuck.
Tekken Anthology would be cool. Or I was thinking you could do a Yoshimitsu like solo series. And you do
You're
like
right,
you do like the
but you know
lore
what I
of
just
Yoshi
thought of? You know what
through
you
like
actually
Soul
just made me
Calibur
think
to
of?
Tekken.
Well, that's actually what I'm thinking is you actually just put it in my head because I wouldn't think about it before. A Soul Calibur show would go hard as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just straight up, right? Like, am I crazy?
No,
Like Soul Calibur show would go hard as fuck.
I'll be
That
tight.
would be sick as
Fucking
hell.
Nightmare and everything, or what's his name?
Yeah,
Nightmare.
Nightmare. Yeah, the journey of like somebody Siegfried and Soul Calibur and Soul Edge. That would be sick as hell, man. That would be dope as fuck. Um, you know, I know some people are probably out there like, why do they should give BlazBlue a show? Fuck that shit. I've followed BlazBlue lore. That shit's an ass.
Melty.
BlazBlue lore is
Ass.
fucking so absurd that like that anyone can take the plot in that series seriously is insane to me. Legitimately. Like say what you want about Guilty Gear, because yes, it is also insane. BlazBlue is like a whole nother thing. Like I feel like Guilty Gear is like kind of tongue in cheek absurd, where like they're almost like laughing at themselves with some of the shit that they come up with. As to where like
it's just so ridiculous that
yeah, BlazBlue is like it's like doing the same shit where it's like here's a beast from fucking the past that eats worlds, and he's also Ragna's arm, and you're like, oh haha, and they're like, we're not joking. This isn't a laughing matter. That's a serious plot point. He has trauma because of it, and it's like, all right, man, whatever. Like, Uni would be kind of tight. Now that you mention Uni, Uni could be cool.
Uni would be cool, but
because isn't Melty Blood is just a Fate fucking spinoff, right? Because it's a Type Moon game.
Yeah, yes and no. It's a Uni's Melty Blood adjacent, which is Fate adjacent.
Oh, I knew Uni was like,
but Uni's its own
like
thing.
I thought like okay,
they're all their own. They're all self-contained, but then like multiversal rifts happen, and characters like Eltnum or Scion or whatever make it into the other games. And
all right, I rescind my vote.
Yeah.
I no longer want that anymore.
Like, dude, the fucking what's the main guy?
I knew Melty Blood was Type Moon adjacent. Like,
what's the main guy in Melty with the glasses?
Show no. Starts with an N. Shiki.
Yeah, Shiki.
Right?
So
Am I
then
crazy?
there's like guy Shiki, and then there's like
Fem Shiki.
Fem Shiki from like another dimension.
Yeah. Yeah, I rescind my vote for all of them. You're actually right. Never mind. Don't make that. Don't make any of those at all. Stick to the Tekken anthology or give me the Guilty Gear show. I hope the Guilty Gear show is good. I just hope it gets like the budget, like we were talking about. Also, I think a lot of people will say this. Overwatch getting a mini series probably would have been good. There's enough, which they had the comic for a while that kind of carried that.
They were planning on that too, but then Blizzard's
Overwatch just kind of fell off,
and
the internal collapse of the company kind
of just ruined all that. So sad for Overwatch fans. I mean, your game was abysmal to watch, but it had cool lore.
Yeah, like I said, the bones were there, right? I think, I wasn't Omega invested in all of the lore, but I do think they had the makings of a cool world, and were telling that world's story in game in a unique way that I thought was neat. I was a fan of the subtle storytelling of the cart map in London in King's Row. The idea that you were essentially bombing an Omnic refugee camp, if you were the aggressing team, stuff like that. It was an interesting way to tell your story in a multiplayer game, actually happening. Or the transport of Doomfist's fist to the museum.
That one was awesome.
Mumbani,
and
in theory, the enemy team trying to stop the cart is, if you look at it in a lore perspective, is trying to steal his fist. That stuff is interesting. It's an interesting way to do things. Or I mean, even down to the Winston map. Was that Point Gibraltar, the one with the rocket? Like that, you're like launching the rocket that he's like sending up in the cutscene. Like, yeah, very, really interesting. A cool way to try to tie your lore into game.
They had the environmental storytelling with all their maps.
Yeah.
They would hide Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Which, like it wasn't in your face, like, hey, that character Tracer that you like? Yeah, look, Tracer on a poster, guys. Look, it's Tracer.
Yeah.
It was like you're playing the game and like there was like a subtle nod to a character, like, oh, that's like a shoe. Something like that. And then if you knew, you knew, and it was cool.
No, yeah, you're right. It had the environmental storytelling. It's exactly what it is. It's those multiplayer maps had cool environmental storytelling that was very neat and relayed what was going on. Yeah. Any other examples? I think that covers it. KOF show would be tight. I want a KOF show.
For the most part. I mean, the last thing I have a question for you now to kind of like send us off with this one, I believe. Since we are talking about our pies in the skies for competitive games, the esports community, what TV shows they would like to see. How in turn do those shows affect the esports landscape? Do they bring in more players for viewership? Do you think they steer them away and they kind of just like acknowledge it from a distance? Or do you think it will inspire people to play the game and get involved with the esports scene by proxy?
So here's the thing, right? Now we're talking about what is ostensibly, for lack of a better term, trickle down economics by way of like viewership, right?
Yes.
What you're asking is like, okay, so I've never heard of a League of Legends.
Right.
No idea what it is. Hit show Arcane is on Netflix. I'm pogging. I watch Arcane and I go, guys, this show is immaculate. I love Jinx. Like, whatever. Like,
Jinx.
Yeah, I'm such a big Jinx fan. I think that fucking Heimerdinger's my goat, whatever. Where'd all this come from? The first place you're drawn to, right, is League of Legends.
Right.
Of course. I think there are a ton of people, probably, a good amount of people that will have watched Arcane, be it season 1 or season 2, and gone like, let me try this League of Legends game out. I love Arcane. Let me try League of Legends out. Fuck, dude, you forced me into breaking my rule. God damn it, because I can't double down, because I said, to give you an example, I was watching VTubers.
I'm sorry.
One of the VTubers,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
back
you
to this
you
corner.
broke the streak. Fuck, dude. Oh my god.
No, it still counts because media.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't count because it's Lee talking directly. I've broken the streak. I'm talking about VTubers.
Oh man.
Fuck. So, I was watching some Hololive VTubers. One of them, Gigi, has like she was watching Worlds. Like she is an esports viewer. She's one of us, right? Like in Austin, like she's one of us, right? She knows.
Yeah.
So she gets hyped and gets back into League because Worlds happened. She watched Worlds and she's like, oh, I've been in a League mood because I was watching Worlds. So now I'm playing League and I want the other, Hololive girls to play League with me. And more than one of them, at least 2 or 3 of them, were like, yeah, I just watched Arcane and I'm really into it, so sure, I will play League with you. I never would have played it prior, but I've watched Arcane and Arcane was cool, so I'll try League with you, GG. Let's do it. So, you have inherent people right there. Like, yes, I think there's a non-negligible amount of people that will watch Arcane and be like, let me try this League of Legends game out, right? The problem you're running into now is now you've entered, like, another layer of, like, because you're right, it's one thing to get them in the game. It's another thing to get them into the esport.
Right.
And the problem is it's a double barrier problem because sure, I watch Arcane, I go play League of Legends. Now it's no longer on Arcane to get me into esports. Now it's how does the game monetize its esport and make it discoverable to me, the player? So will there be people who got into Arcane, played League of Legends, and then were like, let me watch the LTA? Yeah, I think they absolutely exist. But I think it's rare, and I don't think that's Arcane's fault. I think that comes down to how is League of Legends, the League of Legends client, the very game itself, broadcasting its competitive end. And like, I think the League of Legends client, if we're going to talk specifically about that, has gotten better about that stuff. Obviously, if you boot up the client while LTA is happening, there's usually a thing that says like, hey, here's the games going on right now. LTA is live, yada, yada.
They have the thing on the side with the spoilers.
Yeah,
and
it's the little home window. Yeah, they had it all during Worlds, the entirety of Worlds. It had like the feed of the matches, stuff like that. So yeah, it's like, is that stuff going to get person playing his 4th game of Jinx to go, oh, this game gets played competitively? What's that about? And I think I think in some cases that will happen, but I do think those things are niche, right? Like I actually don't think that follow through is insanely high, and I don't think it's a problem. Yeah, I don't think it's it is it's a whole different issue than like Arcane can't solve that. Like how does Arcane I think it's really hard for Arcane the show to like point at the esport and create like a good line there, you know what I mean? Like, because exactly what we were talking about before from like a pandering perspective, if Faker shows up in Arcane, I'm mad. Like I'll say it. I'm pissed. Like
Faker
it's just
walks out.
Fuck that. Like like I don't want that in my Arcane show.
Echo says we really were an SKT1 Faker to Jinx. And then they look at the camera, and then the camera spins around and Faker's standing there.
Orianna shows up on screen randomly, hits a 5-person shockwave, and someone says, "Look at the moves!" I'm mad. I'm mad as fuck. I'm mad. I'm upset. Like, I'm mad at the show.
They show Zed putting a ghost somewhere, and they're like, "He's a faker. What was that?"
You're making my blood boil. I hate that so much. Like, I literally don't think you would have it's a see it to believe it thing. You would have to show me a good example of someone getting a faker joke into a League of Legends show for me to tell you it's possible to be good. Because in my head, I can't think of a single way they could do it that wouldn't just make me mad. Like, legitimately. I think they would all just be awful. So, yeah, it's hard to create that direct line between show and esport. It's much easier to create the line between show and game. Right. But yeah, I think what you got to do is like, that's more on the company, right? The company has to tie the line better between game and esport, like getting a casual player to look into the esport of the game. That's like a game problem. The show problem is like, yeah, how do we get people from the show back to the esport or back to the game, right? And like it's just like, it's almost like it's two weirdly separate issues, or like, yeah, two weirdly separate ends that they have to like tie together. But yeah, I think the thing is like, even if it's hard to draw the line, like the direct line between Arcane, and the esport of League of Legends, inherently getting people to play the game just ups your chances, right? Like it just ups your chances that more people will get into the esport.
Yeah.
Like at the core, you just need more players playing the game. And then those players can, when they become invested enough, become competitive viewers, competitive players, whatever. So it's all good. Like, even if like you can't draw a massive line of like, we got 1,000 players to, join up and play League of Legends for the first time, and 800 of them were fucking playing ranked games, and 600 of them watched LTA the next day. Like, that's probably never going to happen. Because it's just not like a realistic like pass through. Like the percentages just isn't that high.
Yeah.
But any amount of people playing the game inherently boosts discoverability of the esport, right? So like you need these people playing the game. If Arcane is going to keep League of Legends the game alive for another 10 years, that means that it's at least keeping LCS alive another 5, right? Like,
Right.
when
No,
you
yeah.
think about it like
It's
that.
gotta support their competitive scene because
Yeah.
that's also, I would say, like Arcane being like their money maker also leaves room for the other things that people care about, the league fans
Yeah.
to continue to watch. Like it's supplementary for non-league fans, but it's also good for them because it inspires them to want to play the game, like you were saying before,
Yeah,
and
and as
interact
long
with
as
it
you-
more. So if you're playing it, then you want to watch it because
As long as people are coming to play the game, there is at least a chance that they will dive deep enough into the game to find their way into the competitive esport category of the game.
right.
And like, if you have no players, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like, you need people invested in the competitive side of the game for there to be a competitive scene, and for people to be in. No one, like, I'm sure there are very few people who will get into competitive anything. Fuck a League of Legends, but like competitive anything, and like they just get into it, and their immediate thought is like, I've been playing this game I've never heard of for 5 minutes. What are the pros doing? Like, that's such a rare like splinter case that it's just like you can't like you don't account for that. What you do is you get people to play the game. They really like the game, and they start like eventually. If you play a game long enough, humans are competitive in nature, right? Like if you're gonna take the time to play the game to the point of like playing ranked games, at some point you're probably gonna be like, how do I improve at this game? And you will look up resources, and those resources will inherently link you to high level play, which will looking at a high level play will inherently bleed into you seeing the top level of play, which is the esports, right? Yeah, like and like that's kind of the pipeline there. So yeah, to make a long story like short, and to connect like the Always Sunny Charlie web of shadows to one single point, more players is always good for the esport. Period. It doesn't matter if they're playing the esport or even watching the esport. Obviously, you want them watching the esport, and like that's the job of like a Riot Games, is to figure out how do we turn a casual player into at least a competitive viewer. But more people playing the game, period, is good for the esport.
Because I think right, they're like, Arcane's doing so well, we kill LCS or LTA or whatever.
Yeah.
Like in a hypothetical, right? Like we don't need to do this to support ourselves, right? Like nobody's coming to play the game.
I see what you're saying.
So they're like, people only care about Arcane. Nobody's coming to play the game, and LCS or LTA, whatever it is now, viewership is dropping. We just kill like competitive support to give it back to grassroots.
Give it to make 3 more seasons.
Right.
Of
Arcane, I feel like that's a
thing.
detriment to the player base then at that point too, because you've killed the thing that the competitive scene or the player base likes in favor of the casual audience, and you see it in fighting games with the control schemes. Right, it's a similar effect, right? You make the game easier, hardcore fans don't want to engage with it, and you're in the cycle where you're now cutting your player base in half and appealing to a casual audience.
We should have an entirely separate episode on like the onboarding problems with fighting games, because I have a lot of like thoughts on that about like execution and like.
We mentioned it in passing like every episode, so it's bound to happen. We gotta put that together.
We'll get to it. It's on there. Like I said, we have more time with like less stuff. We can get more philosophical lately, but because I think there's a lot. There's a very big nuanced conversation around like fighting games being inherently like beginner unfriendly. And I mean, to spoil like one of my main points for it, I think it's one of the most like overblown statements of all time. I won't get into it too much here, but like my example is, look at how many people play Deadlock right now, and that game is like fucking 7 items that have a paragraph each, and half the paragraph has words that have another paragraph that you have to read to figure out what the words mean. No, man, fighting games are not that much harder than all these other multiplayer genres that are still like thriving and doing fine. It's not
like
the barrier to entry is like it's fucking it's an
way
overblown
less intensive than
yeah, it is an overblown excuse that I feel like fighting game players like to say a lot, where there's like the fighting game is just too hard to get into, and it's like, no, that's a perception problem. It's not an actual problem. League of Legends to me is harder to get into. Dota, right? Dota's I think a fantastic example.
Yeah.
Dota, in my opinion, is way fucking harder to get into than a fighting game. Way fucking harder. The problem is with fighting games is we have developed a fucking perception around ourselves that like that stuff is hard. But whatever, we'll save all that for another time. Because like I said, if we get going on that, I'm gonna talk about it. Because yeah, I have a ton of thoughts about that. But yeah, yes, there is something where it's to get back to I think your central point where you're talking about this idea of like creating something to help these newer players get in faster. Because yeah, let's say you make Arcane, right? And
right.
All these people are like, I want to play League of Legends now. A good portion of them, probably we'll say a non-negligible portion of them, right? Because I don't have numbers. I don't really know of a way to get numbers for this. Let's say I imagine a non-negligible portion of the people who have never played a MOBA before, who watched Arcane and are like, I want to play Jinx from League of Legends. To give you a somewhat example of this, actually, I saw a Reddit post as I was scrolling through Reddit, literally on the League of Legends subreddit, where someone posted and they said, hi, I'm a fan of Arcane who has never played a MOBA before. I want to play an Arcane champion in League of Legends. Can you guys recommend me a champion that is in the show that is easy to pick up? And, people had various things about characters from the show that this person should probably play, right? Mm-hmm. That person, my thing is, like, let's say you're a dev who's really trying to capitalize on this. Why is that person going to Reddit? Why do you not have an Arcane-themed tutorial where you're like...
a landing page on your website to introduce Arcane fans.
Yeah, you're into Arcane, you're coming to League of Legends, and you want to... which, like, people always say that League of Legends has a terrible tutorial, because it does.
It does.
Do I think that's a League of Legends problem? No, I actually think that's a MOBA problem. I think MOBAs are hard to teach on a tutorial level.
Yes. You can give someone the basics, and
yeah.
then they get into a match, and they have...
and it all falls apart. Yeah.
Like, the micro just isn't there because they have no idea.
No.
Not even the macro. Like, they barely know what to do with their character when they load in. Right? It's like, okay, hit creeps. And it's like, I'm hitting creeps, and now I'm getting poked the shit out, and I've died.
Yeah.
But
and
I'm supposed to hit creeps.
And then it's like, oh, well, not only are you supposed to hit creeps, you're supposed to last hit creeps. Yeah. Also, every champion that you're going to play is going to execute a creep at a different point in their health bar. Are you playing an ADC versus a mage? Last hitting feels entirely different. No one's going to tell you that. You're not going to be able to know that. We don't say that anywhere, but that's an inherent truth of the game. And, like, that's just something, like I said, that's like one of the first things. You pick up a new champ and you hit creeps and you're like, oop, that didn't last hit. That would have lasted on the other champ that I play all the time, but it didn't last hit here.
You feel like a
and
wet
it's just
noodle.
because attack values are different. Dude, yeah, anytime I go from playing an 80 champ to a fucking
or you do
mage,
more damage than you thought you were.
Yeah, like last hitting on a mage, sometimes, especially for some mages, it's just like, it can feel like such a fucking nightmare. Like, on Syndra, bro, like having to like time cues and shit to like last hit because my fucking autos
my
do
auto
literally
attacks
nothing
are
to these minions.
man.
Yeah, like it's yeah. But like you said, why are we not, the tutorial is going to kind of blow no matter what until somebody figures that out. And that's a hard problem to solve. I'm not saying I have an answer for it because like you said, they are so hard to teach in a vacuum. Like a MOBA is so hard to teach in a vacuum.
You give them a list of champions and heroes. Have them select one and run them through a gauntlet of that character so they can learn that.
And like that's like the best way to do it. And like you said, if because everyone has foresight, we're putting out Arcane Season 2. There's going to be, obviously they have foresight. This TFT set is entirely Arcane themed. There's a fucking, the splash landing page has like a weird, point and click adventure that's Arcane themed. They added gun buddies and skins into Valorant that are Arcane themed. Like, obviously, yes, Riot has gone all in on like the Arcane marketing this time. Yes. So that means that somebody is probably coming from your show to your game. So, why does it not, when you boot up League of Legends for the first time on a new account, when it tries to run you through the tutorial,
Ask if you've seen Arcane.
ask, hey, you a fan of Arcane? I check the yes box and it goes, okay, we're going to explain roles like normal. Here are the Arcane characters and which roles their champions play.
Here's some familiar faces you
Yeah.
can say.
Here's Jinx. You're interested in ADC? Caitlyn and Jinx are both ADCs. You want to try that? Oh, you're interested in jungle? No one's interested in jungle. But you're
Here's
interested in jungle as
Echo
a first time
and-
player? Here's Vi, Echo.
Vi and Echo.
Top lane, Singed, mid lane, Echo, mid lane, Heimerdinger, which some of those champions, right,
The
are
last thing we need
kind
is
of
more
inherently
Heimerdinger players.
well, let's think, and some of them are kind of inherently hard and unintuitive. Obviously I hate laning against Heimerdinger.
Yeah.
If you're a new player picking up Heimerdinger, what the fuck? You don't know what's going on. You're putting down these turrets and your W and then your R is an upgrade to your other abilities. So yeah, you probably
you give them
can't,
beginner friendly ones.
right. You throw out Echo, you throw out Vi, you throw out Caitlyn and Jinx, you throw out probably Jace, because Victor's probably fine too, right? Even though he has a mechanic that's kind of unique to him.
Yeah.
I don't think his trade patterns are inherently
I think he's also
that
getting
weird.
reworked for the show. I don't know if
That's
it's just a
actually
visual
hilarious. I
thing,
didn't
but it
know-
might be
yeah, I didn't know that.
it might be a mini rework. They might change some interactions.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know the
didn't know that.
details on it. I just
Right.
heard about it.
But like you said, that seems like a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Something they absolutely should do, right? It's crazy to me that wasn't done, because yeah, I do think it's a bit of a missed opportunity on Riot's part that this guy went to Reddit to ask what champion he should play. The tutorial should say, hey, you probably watched Arcane, right? Here are the Arcane champions in the roles that they fulfill. Which one do you want? Which one do you want to try? That is stuff, that is the kind of forethought that I think these people should be putting in when they're doing this stuff, because that is how you start to retain some of these people. Because yeah, the average Arcane player, go figure, probably wants to play an Arcane, they want to play an Arcane champion when they come over to League of Legends. I don't think that's a stretch.
They want to play
So-
they want to play Vi or Jinx, and
They want to play Vi, Jinx, Caitlyn, Echo, right? That's who they're down for. They're trying to play those
I'm
people.
glad we left out
Mbessa,
Jace.
maybe.
Fuck
I'm
Jace.
glad. I know some people were, regardless of what we think about her as a champion, I think it's totally smart that they timed the next champion release to be Mbessa and getting Mbessa in the game.
Yeah.
I think that's super smart. As much as I have current gripes about this TFT set from a play standpoint as a TFT player, totally get why the TFT set is Arcane themed. Makes perfect sense.
It makes the most sense, and
Yeah.
it fits with the brand, and they want to push Arcane.
yeah.
And
100%. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I do think you as a company need to put in effort on capitalizing on these new players in a way that is catering to them, not just here's the generic League of Legends tutorial.
right.
I'd be curious. I don't. Here, hold on.
They need to be a bit more specialized. Give people the option, explain roles, explain the basics of the game, maybe show a short little video that goes through it. Give them the option to choose a role, and then give them the option from there to pick a champion for that role.
Yeah.
And then you run them
100%.
through the tutorial as somewhat normal on that champion, so that now they know who to play, they know what to do in that role, and when they go into a game, they can experiment and engage with it with the information they have.
Okay, so I went looking while we were talking about this to see what the current roster of free champions is for League of Legends right now.
Mhm.
And this wasn't updated. Free champion rotation. So that was updated in October. I'm trying to see this current one right now. Let's see. Okay, November 19th to 26th. Let's see. So, Akshan out. So let's see. Okay, Caitlyn's in. Perfect. Echo is in, perfect. Heimerdinger is in, perfect. Jace is in, Jinx is in, Ambessa is in. Okay, so they did it. They did what I was checking for. Vi is in. Yes. All right. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Obviously, that's not per chance, right? That's calculated move. The fact that every Arcane character is even Victor, Warwick,
is available.
Every
and free
Arcane
to play.
character is free to play right now for the 19th to the 26th. And I'll keep it a buck, right? They should be this entire month. You should never take them out of the free championship rotation for this whole month.
And
Absolutely
I feel
not.
like
they should be in there nonstop.
I feel like Caitlyn, Jinx, and Vi can be just free, like a signing bonus. You know, you come into League and you can get those champions.
I do think on new accounts, because they usually give you
you get like a progression
for free
reward
in every role. Yeah, for every role. I believe Jinx has been a part of that one for a while.
She's been there for a bit. Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely correct.
And maybe
I
you
totally
give them the
agree.
Arcane skin too. Listen, I know you're gonna lose money on it, but listen, as a little sign-on bonus, you get one Arcane skin with the champion.
To be fair, what you're talking about, they did that for the first season.
Yeah.
All you had to do to get the Arcane skins
was log in, you got
everyone
Caitlyn.
was log in. You got the Caitlyn skin.
If
you played like 3 games, you got Jinx. The Vi one, I got all of those skins. I
bought Firelight
money
Echo
for them. It is a dope skin.
It's
arguably
his best one. Listen, people say Project. No. Project is mid.
I also agree. Project's mid.
Feels like Danny Phantom.
Yeah, I also agree. Project's mid. No, you're right. Fire. Yeah, that Firelight Echo is very sick. But no, legit. I wanted to check that to make sure they're doing it, because that seemed like that is the most brain dead, like easy thing you can do. Is like if the Arcane champions aren't in free rotation right now, somebody fucked up somewhere. Like someone's not doing their job. Yeah. But obviously they did do that. And like, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Like that needs to have that foresight to say, obviously these people need to be able to play any Arcane champ they want right now. Make them all free. And they did that. All of them are free. You can play them right now. But yeah, I think you're right. Let's go one step further. Let's get these people in the tutorial saying, this is what your favorite Arcane champion, this is the role they play in. Here's what you need to know about that role. Here's a little explanation. Like you can, because I think it's still, if you want to play the tutorial, it's like if you're doing the ADC tutorial, it's your Ashe, right? Like every time.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
I think you're either Ashe or Jinx. I know in Wild Rift you're Jinx.
Wild Rift you're Jinx, because I've also played that. In my opinion, scrap that shit. Even if you're just going to do it for like the couple months for Arcane's release. Hey, Ashe or Jinx, who do you want? Obviously they want Jinx. They're going to hit Jinx. You want to learn fucking jungle, Vi? Yeah, play Vi. You want to learn top? Play Jace. Like, Warwick, exactly. Like, whatever. Like, here, we'll give you the tutorial as these characters, because this is why you're coming to the game right now.
In that, like, first bot game, you can just make it Piltover versus Zaun, right?
Yeah. No. Oh my god, you're so correct.
You can just because you have all those champions available to you. You have a 5v5. It's what they did for the promotion for the Bridge of Progress and ARAM.
Like, no, you're right, because
you have that available to you.
ARAM being Bridge of Progress is literally, that's like what you're talking about. Like it is. Yeah, no, it's 100%. I do think the extra step is something that should be taken in these kinds of scenarios, because it is obvious that you're going to have some influx of players coming to your game because of the show, and we need to, you want to retain those people, and you need to do everything you can to keep them locked in. And like that, I think, is an easy way to get some more people locked in, to make sure they can play the champions they want to play from the jump, and that they are informed on how to play the game through the lens of those champions. Because that's the thing, right? Like that's what makes onboarding and all of this stuff hard. When we talk about like competitive League of Legends, even down to like FPSs, fighting games, all that stuff, is I do think it is often slept on, the idea that the way you play the game, and because these games are kind of like open form, right? Like in a way, right? We make a joke about, there's a constant joke in the in fighting games where they talk about the open world fighting game, right? Like it's kind of a meme where it's like, oh, this game is so open, so stylistically expressive that it's an open world fighting game. You do whatever you want.
Custom combos, baby.
Yeah, and it's like that's kind of a meme, but what is not a meme is the idea that the character you play in a fighting game, and I think this extends to a MOBA as well, the kind of character you play, the role you play in a MOBA, the style of character you play in a fighting game. Hell, maybe to really stretch the analogy out, the kind of guns you use in an FPS, those are creating a lens at which you view the game through, right?
Right.
Like, if I am playing Giovanna as she is a rushdown character, right? And then I have 300 hours on Giovanna. Am I going to learn fundamentals of the way the game works? Absolutely, 100%. If I switch to a zoner, am I going to play the zoner as well as Giovanna? No, because I haven't learned the game through the lens of zoning. I don't understand spacing as well because I'm crutching on a dash that's 7 million miles an hour.
That's full screen. Not actually, but it might
to be
as well
fair,
be.
like obviously she is a spacing heavy character, so maybe that's a slightly bad example. But you get my point.
Yes.
You are learning the game through a lens, and that lens is going to put focus on more things, on certain things, on particular things that wouldn't be as emphasized with another character. I mean that is super exaggerated when you talk about MOBAs and roles, right? If you're learning the game as a support and suddenly you go mid, it's a whole different world, like the way you trade, the way your wave is managed, it's literally 2 people in your lane down to 1 person in your lane, and that 1 person is just you. So like that's an entirely different lens to learn the game through. Like, so what you need to do is, if people want to learn the game through a lens, you need to get them the lens they want early,
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I think we've spoken our piece.
I think we've covered the majority of what we want.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That was good.
Any
Good
closing
discussion.
thoughts? Any topics we're gonna set up for next episode? We're gonna run back our
Honestly,
lost episode.
that's on the board. That's on the list. We could do that.
Do that. Get that.
I
out
say
of the way.
fuck it. Next time, yeah, we can talk about health of scene, because I know we have a lost episode that where we talked about sort of the makings,
We
makings
have an
of it.
episode out that references that lost episode, and so now we have to re-record
Yeah,
it
now
so
we
that
have to
those
do it.
points kind of make sense.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I guess tune in next time. We'll talk. We'll get back. We'll rehash the topic of what we think goes into getting a healthy start for your esport, your competitive scene.
And maybe dabble into the business aspect of it as well. What it takes to run an org.
Both. Not only the beginnings, but
Yeah.
the key, the health of the scene. Period. Maintaining the health of the scene. What is healthy for it. Both from a game perspective and from an org perspective. So yeah, we definitely want to talk about that. So we'll get that on the list. We'll see how we feel from a timing perspective. I do want to talk about. I was like, maybe we can do that, and we can talk about
you got some like FGC
fighting
stuff.
That I was gonna say we could talk about the barrier to entry shit.
Yeah.
Like that I was talking about. So maybe see those things bundled into one, because I do think barrier to entry is an important point. Yeah. So yeah, we'll say that. We'll get it on the books for next time. We'll talk about we're gonna do health of the scene, origins of scene, stuff like that, as well as, like I said, barrier for entry, because for your average player, and what that means and how games are perceived in that manner and stuff. Come back. It's gonna be good shit. We get to milk all this time where there's not a lot of news going on to talk philosophically about this stuff. So
you're real into the nitty gritty of esports.
Yeah.
So make sure you tune in either next week or the following week. Our release schedule, I think, is twice a month. So
yeah,
this one will be up probably a week from now, and then we'll have the next one up something after, whatever.
Yeah.
But for
it is coming
for your, what is it, biannual esports physical with Dobon and Prater MD at HotKeys General.
Biannual would be once every
2 years.
2 years. Bi-monthly.
That's once every 2 months.
Bi-weekly.
So once every 2 weeks.
It's twice a month.
But like physicals are usually like 6 months between, so that's always like biannual.
We come twice a month.
Some of us more often, but
not this month. Not for me.
oh,
You're not getting me, son.
That's probably getting
Keep your
cut.
devils to yourself. No, leave that shit in. Leave it in.
We'll leave it in. We're doing it live. All right, we'll do it live next time on the hottest esports podcast on the planet. Stay tuned.
Oh, the misery.
To HotKeys. Oh, the misery. Heavy is the crown. Watch Arcane. Free plug. Shameless plug. Riot Games. Sign us. We'll see you next week. 2 weeks. Whatever. Bye.
We'll see you.